Norway, country of Northern Europe that occupies the western half of the Scandinavian peninsula. Nearly half of the inhabitants of the country live in the far south, in the region around Oslo, the capital. About two-thirds of Norway is mountainous, and off its much indented coastline lie, carved by deep glacial fjords, some 50,000 islands. Norway's austere natural beauty has attracted visitors from all over the world. The country has also produced many important artists, among them composer Edvard Grieg, painter Edvard Munch, novelists Knut Hamsun and Sigrid Undset, and playwright Henrik Ibsen. Of his country and its ruminative people, Ibsen observed the magnificent, but severe, natural environment surrounding people up there in the north, the lonely, secluded life. The farms are miles apart, forces them to become introspective and serious. At home every other person is a philosopher. Land. With the Barents Sea to the north, the Norwegian Sea and the North Sea to the west, and Skager Strait, to the south, Norway has land borders only to the east, with Sweden, Finland, and Russia. Norway occupies part of Northern Europe's Fennoscandian Shield. The extremely hard bedrock, which consists mostly of granite and other heat and pressure-formed materials, ranges from 1 to 2 billion years in age. Rivers running westward acquired tremendous erosive power. Following fracture lines marking weaknesses in the Earth's crust, they dug out gorges and canyons that knifed deep into the jagged coast. To the east the land sloped more gently, and broader valleys were formed. During repeated periods of glaciation in the Great Ice Age of the Quaternary period, i.e., about the last 2.6 million years, the scouring action of glaciers tonguing down the V-shaped valleys that were then part of the landscape created the magnificent U-shaped drowned fjords that now grace the western coast of Norway. Enormous masses of soil, gravel, and stone were also carried by glacial action as far south as present-day Denmark and northern Germany. The bedrock, exposed in about 40% of the area, was scoured and polished by the movements of these materials. There are 4 traditional regions of Norway, 3 in the south and 1 in the Arctic. North. The 3 main regions of the south are defined by wide mountain barriers. From the southernmost point a swelling complex of ranges, collectively called Lang Mountains, runs northward to divide eastern Norway, or Østlandet, from western Norway, or Vestlandet. The narrow coastal zone of Vestlandet has many islands, and steep-walled, narrow fjords cut deep into the interior mountain region. The major exception is the wide Jæren Plain, south of Stavanger. An eastward sweep of the mountains separates northern Østlandet from the Trondheim region, or Trøndelag. Northern Norway, or Nord-Norge, begins almost exactly at the midpoint of the country. Most of the region is above the Arctic Circle, and much of it is filled with mountain with jagged peaks and ridges, even on the many islands. In the melting periods between ice ages, large areas were flooded by the sea because the enormous weight of the ice had depressed the land. Thick layers of clay, silt, and sand were deposited along the present coast and in large areas in the Oslo and Trondheim regions, which rise as high as 650 feet above sea level today. Some very rich soils are found below these old marine coastal regions. In the large areas covered by forests, the main soil has been stripped of much of its mineral content, and this has created poor agricultural land. In the interior of the Østlandet region, farms are located along the sides of the broad valleys, the bottoms of which contain only washed-out deposits of soil. With rich glacier-formed soils, exceptionally mild winters, long growing seasons, and plentiful precipitation, the Jæren Plain boasts the highest yields of any agricultural area in Norway. Climate of Norway. Although it occupies almost the same degrees of latitude as Alaska, Norway owes its warmer climate to the Norwegian current, which carries 4 to 5 million tons of tropical water per second into the surrounding seas. This current usually keeps the fjords from freezing, even in the Arctic Finnmark region. Even more important are the southerly air currents brought in above these warm waters, especially during the winter. The mean annual temperature on the west coast is 45 degrees Fahrenheit, or 54 degrees Fahrenheit above average for the latitude. In the Lofoten Islands, north of the Arctic Circle, the January mean is 43 degrees Fahrenheit above the world average for this latitude and one of the world's greatest thermal anomalies. Norway lies directly in the path of the North Atlantic cyclones, which bring frequent gales and changes in weather. Western Norway has a marine climate, with comparatively cool summers, mild winters, and nearly 90 inches of mean annual precipitation. Eastern Norway, sheltered by the mountains, has an inland climate with warm summers, cold winters, and less than 30 inches of mean annual precipitation. In western Norway, Karm Island comprises a notably rich agricultural area. The inland fjord areas of Hardanger are more sheltered, with rich fruit districts specializing in apples and cherries. Trøndelag is Norway's most typical agricultural region, with flat, fertile land around the wide Trondheim fjord and the city of Trondheim. Although less than 1/20th of Norway's total area is agricultural land, productive forests constitute more than 1/3 of the total area. Forestry forms the basis for the wood processing industry, which accounts for a small but important part of Norway's total commodity exports, and is of major importance for the roughly half of all Norwegian farms that are so small that a second major source of income must be found. Along the coast, fishing plays the same role that forestry does elsewhere. At the same time, it forms the basis of a large fish processing industry and offers seasonal employment for many farmers. Of all fishermen, only half fish as their sole occupation. Most vessels are owned by the fishermen themselves, the necessary crew members being paid by shares of gross income in a continuation of a centuries-old tradition of the sea. A critical problem is how to avoid depleting the fish resources while maintaining the volume. Norway's principal seafood products include fresh fish, dried and salted fish, smoked fish, frozen fish fillets, and other processed forms such as marinated and tinned fish. Fish offal is used as feed at mink farms. In the northwest, the city of Ålesund thrives on fishing.